Hey guys, I'm Tiffany, and we've got Leisha with us today. We're going to talk about the profiles of your human design. I'm so excited to talk about this because it's kind of like that next step. If you've gotten a flash of what your chart is, if you've gotten that first flash of understanding, there are so many little areas to dig into. So this is just one of many. We've got a whole class on a tour of the body graph available now in the Wise Skies membership. So if you're a member, it's only $22 a month. You can go and log into your spot and get this beautiful hour-and-a-half class that Leisha taught us on a tour of the full body graph. But we're just talking about one aspect today of that, and that's the profiles. So thank you again, Leisha, for teaching all of us. Leisha has a special for $44. It's a mini session for November. So if you've been curious, if you've been HD curious, this is the session to get. And this is the time to get it. All right. So Leisha, tell us about profiles.
Thanks, Tiffany. And I love HG Curious. Gonna have to, put that in regular rotation now. So profile in human design is kind of like the costume we wear in this life. As we're kind of going through our life and fulfilling our unique purpose in this life. It actually describes the genetic characteristics as well that we, that are in continuity with that profile. And it's the angle of geometry that we came in on in this life. It's programmed into us. It's the main imprinted frequency that we came into this life with. There's two numbers in the profile. So if you have pulled up your chart, you'll see that there's, a first number and then a slash and then the second number. So I'm going to pull up my chart real quick to kind of show you an example. So you'll see here that on the right-hand side, when you look at chart properties, you can see that there's this profile right here. So I am what's called a 1-3. So you see the little, looks like a fraction. A 1/3 is my profile. Okay.
It doesn't mean that you're a third martyr. Right?
No, and I'm not only a third of a person. So yes, it's math, but not that we're a fraction of whatever. So the first number, the 1, is, and we're gonna go into what each of the numbers mean generally, but the first number is the sun and earth lines on the personality side. So I'm going to show you on the body graph. If you look here at the top, on the right hand side, the black activations, you see the 26.1 and the 45.1 in my sun and earth. So the first number is the sun, the second number is the earth. And the numbers, the 26 and the 45, are the gate that the sun, what position the sun was in when I was born, right? The imprinting when I was born. So that's the 26. The 0.1 shows the line. So there's 6 lines, 6 profile lines, and they are, in every gate, you'll see a profile line actually. So the 26.1 and the 45.1 are the line of my personality. So
and
I have
you do your mouse over it so they can see? Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the 1. So these two are my personality. Sun and earth are both in line 1. That's the first number of the profile, the 1-3, which is what my profile is. The second number is over here, the 47 and the 22. You can see that those have 0.3 after them, right? So when, 88 days before I was born is when the design imprints onto that being. And again, there's a class that we have for that. I think it's in the tour of the body graph. Yes. Okay. Yes. I think it's in tour of the body graph. And so that is where my sun was when my design imprint came in. It was in gate 47, line 3. So again, there's 6 profile lines. The second number of my profile, 1-3, comes from the design sun and earth. Tiffany, did you want to add anything to make that clear?
No, that was perfect. So the okay. Profile always comes in 2 numbers. There are 6 lines, so it's going to be a combination of the numbers 1 through 6, right?
That's right.
So
that's right.
Yeah, that's
yes.
really great. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So on the one thing before we kind of get into it further is the personality side. We are aware of that. It's how our mind works. and how our personality works. So we are more aware of our line 1 profile. If you have a 1 in the personality side, we'll be more aware of that. And this is, again, this is just a general aspect. The red is something that we're not as aware of in our design chart, in our body graph, and the black is something we are aware of. So just to note, that is also true of the profile. Yes.
And where do the 6 lines come from? Like, where are they? What 6 lines of what?
So I'm going to show you. So this is the hexagram that the 6 lines come from. And this is from the I Ching, the I Ching, which is one of the systems that is synthesized in human design.
I Ching. That sounds so like gangsta, like I Ching,
Oh, it's like, I automatically say that because of I guess iPad and iPhone or whatever, but it's like, no, it's I Ching. It's not I Ching. So yes, I always correct myself, but I continue to do it, which is explained in my profile. So we'll get into that. But okay, so each of these lines, remember we said there's 6 lines in the profile. We can go into there's the yin and the yang and the different things, right? And the different combination of them. So just know that the hexagram gets very detailed and complex. So we can go as deep as we want in another class. Or in your own experiment. So the hexagram, each line represents the genetic continuity of that line. It's the same frequency in all aspects of the mechanics. So whether it's in your personality sun, whether it's in a different gate, whether it's in where your Neptune activation is, whatever, it's going to be that same frequency that is in the line 1 of the profile. We're going to talk about each of the 6 lines. And just to kind of note, the hexagrams correspond, different hexagrams correspond to different codons and amino acids, and it goes, really, really in depth and detailed. Okay, so that's where it comes from, is the I Ching. There are 12 profiles. So it's not just that you can combine every 1 through 6 in the first first number of the profile and 1 through 6 in the second part of the profile. Some don't exist and some, do. So basically there's 12 total profiles. The profile is, it's kind of like we can use it as a signpost for, what quality of correctness am I experiencing in my day-to-day life? Is that how I'm going about things? Do I notice that I'm naturally embracing what my profile is sort of describing? And, again, type, strategy, and authority is going to be the most important. So I definitely invite you to, to dive into that very basic foundational thing when it's correct for you. But as we begin to make decisions as ourselves and not who we've been conditioned to be or what our mind is chattering on about is the best reason to do things, then we start to live into our profile. And it's this feeling of being at one with the nature of who I am, So it's that thing where once I learned my profile, I was like, oh, okay, you can just kind of relax into it. That's me. I don't need to be line 6. I don't need to be a, line 2 personality. That's not, no, I'm a 1-3. That's it. So I wanted to go into what the 6 lines mean. And does that feel like a good time to do that, Tiffany?
Yep, I do. I did. Yeah. So we said that there were 12 profile types, and that the profile is this costume. And so for you guys, I describe the signs in astrology the same way. The signs are kind of like the costume that you wear, and it's not really a costume that you take off, right? This is just a part of your way of experiencing the world right now. Maybe you'll come back in another costume another time, right? But right now, this is the one that you're wearing. So let's learn about it, And so so there are 12 types, but there's only 6 lines to work with. And so one line is going to describe that part of you that that you relate with, that resonates with who you are in this physical body. And the other line is going to represent something that's a little bit more subconscious, that was implanted in you upon that 88 days before you were born. And so I think, let's dive. So everybody, if you can find your profile lines, great. If not, Leisha can point them out for you in a session. It is important that you have your birthday, your birth time exactly correct. because that'll shift things around, you know? And so you don't want to be over here thinking that you're a 1-3 when you're a 2-4, right? So we want to make sure that you have that correct. And if you don't have that correct, or you need help for that, we want to help you find the correct time. So that said, okay, yes, I know you have another picture
image
for us.
Yeah, I have a little metaphor to kind of help us think about because each profile line, and then therefore every combination that go into the profiles, it's a unique way of being, a unique role or character in the play of life, right? Like in humanity. And that's what our unique profile shows us, that we're here to do, and how we're supposed to do it. So I have this house metaphor, and I'm gonna, I'd like to go through each of the lines, but just as a general quick thing, if you start, we always start with the 1 and we go up to the 6, but the 6 is kind of the, we start building at the 1 if we're thinking about a house, but then the 6 is kind of like the roof. So we'll talk about that. So that just to know how the hexagram moves. So the line 1 is really the foundation of the house. It's this guy down here, kind of in the basement, I guess, but it's really the foundation is sort of the keynote of that, the key word of that line 1. So if you have a line 1 in your profile, that's this foundational element. And we'll go into that a little bit more. The line 2 is this guy that you can see through the window, this person playing the piano. Okay. And it's kind of like someone's looking in and sort of, seeing what the person's doing, but they're in their own world, kind of, right? The third line is the person on the stairs, kind of going up to the next level. And they're really, it's like about the transition between the first level and the second level. Okay. The fourth line is the opportunist, which is the person, on the balcony, kind of maybe in the parties, chatting with all the friends. You see other friends in the shadows there in the window. And that's about, really it's the foundation of the second floor. It's externalizing, hey, the first floor went great, guys. Here's all my friends. I need to tell everybody about that. The heretic, the line 5, is the person over here on the left. The second window is kind of in the shadow, right? Like on the second floor, the second window from the left, you see that there's a person in the shadow. That's the heretic. That's like kind of in the window of the second house, sort of can't really be seen. It's almost like a gauzy window screen or something that you're like, can't quite see what they really are. So we'll talk about that a little more. And then the 6th line is this person just chilling on the roof looking at the stars. And that's really, it's called the role model. It's really about transition to the future. Like, okay, this is what we learned from building this house. Now I need to, at some point in my life process, and we'll talk about that, I need to go and communicate with others how this house was built, what we learned, just by being myself, they're going to see all that I gained, all the knowledge I gained from all these people underneath me, showing me and teaching me and being themselves, that allowed me to be myself. So that's kind of the 6th line, person on the roof thing. Do you want to add anything before I talk about a little bit more about each of those? I know the house metaphor is kind of funny, but it works.
No, I like the house metaphor. I think, the thing that I would add is that your profile doesn't change throughout your life. And so this is something that is consistently with you, guiding you as a teacher, as kind of part of your roadmap. There's like lots of different points and elements and posts. Like we're in the metaphysical world, but this is a very concrete way of using some of these tools about your specific body graph at the time you were born, to help you understand that this is part of my life, forever. I'm always going to experience things this way through this lens. I think a good example of this, do you want to stop your screen share so we can be hanging out with everybody? I think a good example of this is like in my kiddo's school, they do these 4 houses. Basically, it's very Hogwarts feeling. It's like there's the science kids and the art kids and the history kids, and I don't know what they all are because I know we're in the science one. That's where I'm at. But the idea is that they teach all of their core courses through the lens of science or through the lens of arts and culture. or through the lens of whatever the 6 lines are. You know what I mean? So I think that is kind of how I am understanding the profiles anyways. It's like we might be looking at the same thing. We might be hanging out in the same city, state, country, we might be absorbing the same information, but I'm going to have the Tiffany lens and you're going to have the Leisha lens, and mine happens to be a 3-5, right? And so yours happens to be a 1-3. So there are some things I say, let's see, you're 1-3. So it's like your subconscious and my conscious have the same number. So there are some things that we're going to click on, you know what I mean? That we're going to get the same way. Like both of us, when we take classes, we really like to take notes, like lots of notes, like it's part of our learning process. That might not be exactly the 3, but that's just an example of the way that sometimes we have the same lens of going about the world. So if you're looking at your charts, of the charts of everybody you know and love, you know what I mean? And you notice that you have the same number, it can be just kind of a fun little, oh, we share that in common, but you're still uniquely you, because there's so much more going into it. But yeah, I think I derailed us slightly, but I like that.
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I love, because it's almost like, I love how you said that is going to allow you to see through your lens. If I'm operating like the line 1, like a profile, my profile, which is a 1-3, as well as, it's going to take into into account all the different elements of my design, mainly type, strategy, and authority. But if I'm operating as a 1-3, then I'm going about things and I'm going to bring things to the collective, to the totality, that are the things I'm supposed to bring as me, as Leisha, as this specific design and being, right? With my experiences and my whatever, my lens. So it's going to allow that purpose to be fulfilled, which is to live as myself and bring my unique seeing to the totality. And Tiffany's gonna, she's a 3-5. If she's living as her type, strategy, and authority, and aware of and instantly, correctly, not instantly, I would say it's a process of living within, living her profile as well. It's not something you really have to try to do. It naturally happens. You're going to identify with a lot of it. But it's, then she's going to bring her unique seeing and her unique perspective and expression and way of saying things to the collective. And that's what each of us are meant to do. But if we're just, being a bunch of stuff that we're not, if we're looking over here, but we need looking over here, then we're not going to have that fulfillment, that peace, that satisfaction, that success that we're here to have, if we're in alignment with who we really are. So I love the way you said that about our unique lens.
Right. Yeah. Really and yet good. You can still be in that same house with other people. Well, right. if you're freaking out because you're like, wait a minute, I don't know what each of the lines mean, and this is mind blowing to me. We do have this as an article, which I'll link for you. So we have all the notes taken, right? Because we like to provide that for you. But you can make your own notes, of course. But I just want to soothe anybody's mind that's like, wait, I didn't grasp all of the exactly 6 things, right? Again, like Leisha's saying, start with your aura type. Just start there. Start following your design, and it'll naturally lead you to the understanding of each of the profile lines. So let's look. We're going to do us as an example. And so let's start with you, Leisha. Leisha's a 1-3, which the 1 is the investigator and the 3 is the martyr. And nobody wants to hear the word martyr. You get to be the martyr.
Oh, how inspiring.
Yes. Aren't you glad to be uniquely you?
Wow, how fun.
I know. I have it too. So, so sometimes, guys, the words in HD have a different frequency, have a vibration. They don't necessarily mean as the things as we think they do in kind of the modern world. But anyways, yeah, let's look at your chart. Let's tell us what's up with the 1-3 with you. How do you experience it?
Okay. And do you want me to actually share my screen?
I said that, but we already looked at your chart.
No,
y'all know we already saw it. Yeah, no. Yeah.
No, don't do it. Okay, forget the sharing. Okay, so yes, I love that you said that it has its own language, because again, when I heard the martyr thing, I was like, oh, excuse me, but it's like an astrophysicist, you can't go up and say, well, I don't like the word, celestial, comet or whatever. such a bad example.
I take offense to the word comment. So
Comment is offending to me. So I'm going to change. Well, okay, but there's a lot behind that. And it doesn't just mean that, right? So I would say, just like you were saying, just kind of be open to it and just take it in and let it do what it is correct for you to do with it.
Let's just take a moment to explain that comet is a noun that is a celestial object consisting of a nucleus of ice and dust, and when near the sun, a tail of gas and dust particles points away from the sun. So that's.
I'm sure there's some reason why.
I don't want to offend any comets out there, like.
Yeah, just to clarify.
All right, back at you.
Okay, so then let's go. So we're going to talk about each of the 6 lines, but again, I'm a 1-3, so that means my personality is in line 1. Now, line 1 in the house metaphor was the foundation of the house, right? So what the line 1 wants is they want to investigate and dig down until the foundation is strong. So it's like there can be like this insecurity there until they feel like they're an authority, until the foundation is strong, right? So they're going to be very introspective. They're going to be doing research and study. They love to learn. They want, the details. They want the foundation to be strong. They want the core of the thing, right? They want to know what's at the core of things. And so once they get that, then they can really spread, like they can share that tribally, but they're not going to want to be an authority figure or say they know anything until they've dig down deep to make sure it's strong. And I can relate to that just with human design. I'll see people that kind of found it around the same time I did, or it found me, I would say, around 2.5 years ago. And within 1 month, they were like doing readings and trying, and I mean, it, for me as a line 1, I was like, ooh, like that doesn't seem correct to me. Now, is it their journey? Probably. Like, I have no idea. But my line 1 was like, oh no, I need to take all the classes. I need to dig down deep. I need to read every single thing. I need to have a Trello board. I need to, have contacts from all these different communities and follow and watch and save all the information. And that's what I did. And then, then I felt like the foundation was strong. And so I can really relate to that just in my life, like needing to dig in, needing to have the details. I'll be with like friends who don't have a line 1 in their profile, and they'll say, I wonder whatever, what year was that or something. And then they'll move on. And I'm over here Googling on my phone. Literally, I need to get to the detail, So it's little examples like that. And I'm aware of that because it's in my personality. Has a lot to do. I have questions. I want to know things. If someone says something, I'm like, well, I'll do some research on that, in my own head. I don't need to say that to them all the time.
And it's not a character defect. It's not a flaw. It's right. It's like all of these are gifts and guideposts for you. So you might find it's part of your own healing process and soul growth. If you have that line 1 in there, and maybe for your life, people are like, you don't need to know that, you know what I mean? Or maybe you've had somebody along the way that's like, it doesn't really matter, but to you it does, and that. And so if for the first time in your life you're getting permission to dive deep and understand, that can be really freeing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that.
Okay.
And then I'm a line a 3 is my design side. So the line 3 is called the Martyr. Okay, again, our favorite word. And that's the stairs transitioning, kind of going up from the first level where the foundation is secure up to the next level up, which gets into like sharing with others and things like that. The line 3 is like kind of like an anarchist, right? Like they have this core strength that they can just tear things down that aren't good for society. They're not afraid to go and poke the bear and kind of and sort of like just see what doesn't work and kind of try it for themselves, trial and error. Like, I have to try it myself. I have to experience this for myself. You can tell me all day long to not get student loans and to whatever, and to like not run up your credit cards. No, I had to go do all that by myself.
Right.
And I've figured out what does work from what doesn't work, so it's like, there's a lot of feeling like it's kind of like a pessimism until you find what really does work. Right. So you're not necessarily supposed to say, I'm pessimistic about what you just said. But what I feel as a third line in my profile is kind of someone will say something or share, whatever. And I notice that I kind of go, I'll check that out for myself. First of all, I'm going to go research the shit out of it. Then I'm going to go try it for myself. I mean, whether I fail or not, I have to learn by doing it myself. So there's this kind of mutative sort of individual element to the third line. It's really there. People with a third line in their profile are going to be very adaptable, very resilient, because they poke all the things and none of it works, and they feel like they made mistakes. You're supposed to make mistakes if you have a third line in your profile. If you don't make mistakes, you're doing it wrong, right? I mean, we're supposed to jack it up left and right and tear it down. Anarchy, right? So it's like we will actually kind of martyr ourselves to figure out what does work, and to discover. So the point of the third line is to discover what does and doesn't work, and then share that with the tribe. So that's my design side, which is something that I definitely wasn't. When I first heard it, I was like, I don't know about that. Don't feel like I made mistakes. Nope. Which is often our initial, like our mind answers at first when we see a lot of these things in human design, right? Our mind is like, that's not true. Like all these other, you're positive, like you're so optimistic and all these things, which is literally what I was known for my whole life, which is funny because it's almost like the shadow of being pessimistic, right? But it's like what I've noticed is that over time now, and this is how the design side works. Anything in red, we're not necessarily aware of it or conscious of it, but over time you can start to observe that thing at play, right? So over time I've seen that, yeah, I do kind of bump into things a lot. I do, make mistakes, or have felt like I made mistakes in my life. Like, oh, I didn't, do this or that as fast or as linearly with my steps as like all these other people did. I took this roundabout kind of way to get there. And it's almost like it reframes all that, because I didn't make a dang mistake, not a one. Actually, I had to jack all that stuff up, or I wouldn't have discovered this and what worked, and HD wouldn't have come to me, and all these other things. So that's kind of the third line. The martyr piece is like, it's bonds made and broken, trial and error, got to do it ourselves, got to jack it up, make mistakes, kind of like Miss Frizzle and some Magic School Bus, make mistakes, get messy. That's a third line thing. So that's, if you put those together as a 1-3, I'm here to discover what does and doesn't work by digging down deep into the foundation until, I find out what does work, right? So that's kind of a simplified way to really say that. Do you want me to go into the lines, or did you want to do yours next, Tiff?
Okay. Yes.
I didn't do 2 yet. We did 1 and 3.
Okay. I don't know.
Okay.
Let's do the lines.
Yes, I like that. That's what I was going to say.
Okay, good.
And then we'll look at yours kind of at the end, since you have a 5 in there, which is sort of up on the
it's like we were doing like a arc, like we're doing like a character arc.
Okay. Yes, I like it. So we said, okay, so we talked about line 1 as the investigator. Mm-hmm. And once that foundation, the line 2 in the house metaphor was the person playing the piano that we could kind of watch, but they're doing their own thing. That's called the hermit. Okay, so that's really they're also called like the natural, So if you have a 2 in your personality, like if you're a 2-4 or any of that, then, or 2-5, then you're really a natural, and like with connecting with people, with probably language,
art is what I think.
Yeah, art. Some of the ways that you, and you're kind of doing your own thing. If you have it in your design side. Now, I will say I have 2 kids and a partner, and then me, and we have all 6 lines in various combinations. None of us are the same profile. So I've been exploring this very deeply because I'm an investigator, line 1, for 2.5 years. And the line 2, so my partner is a 2-4. So he has it in the personality, and he can connect with people. I mean, he is really great with language. He kind of does like need to hermit and sort of be alone and things like that. And then my one child, my 5-year-old, is a 6-2. So he has it in his design side. And that child, it's like nobody taught him to swim, but one day he was just swimming, and like was an expert, like the natural, right? He just could do it. It's this natural ability that comes through. I mean, even like riding bikes and stuff, he just, no, it's like part of his thing is like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't. And then one day he just on it riding, no training wheels, you know? And so that's what I see in, you know, you can think of that on the design, the body side, the red side, or which is the second number, or you can think of it in the personality. So the line 2 is the hermit, the natural, they're doing their own thing. They kind of want to be left alone. You know, they're just like the guy playing the piano in the window. They're just doing their own thing. There's like this theme of shyness, boldness, you know, so they can kind of, everything's a binary in human design. So it's like, yeah, so there's the shyness, boldness. Others kind of need to break through that barrier first. They're always noticed, but they're sort of waiting. They're just doing their own thing. People are seeing them as they're walking by the house. They're in the window doing their own thing, playing their piano. And then they get the call. So they're waiting for the right call to then call them out of their hermitness and come and, you know, offer what their gifts are, right? Whether it's their definition, their strategy, their authority, right? Their creativity, all those things. And they are in a projection field. So 2 lines in the 6 are in this kind of projection field. The second line, the hermit, is this projection outward. So they're projecting that they are a natural and that they can fulfill the call, right? But they're kind of like, I'm doing my own thing. And then like they get a call and they're kind of like, oh, okay, well, you know, and they follow their strategy and authority to whether they answer that call or not. So the hermit, the call, the natural, that's kind of the second line. So the third line we talked about is the martyr, right? And that's the got to poke the bear, got to make mistakes, got to jack it up left and right to discover what does work, because they really need to know what doesn't. And they're kind of an anarchist. The line 4 we haven't talked about yet. That in the house metaphor, that was the person upstairs that was kind of, you could see the shadow of all the friends and everything that they were talking about. This line 4 is called the opportunist. So that was the foundation kind of the second floor. This is like externalized influence. So externalizing their influence through friendship. So it's like their network, right? People they know. That's the whole point of the 4. All the opportunities for their life, for their correct line of geometry and alignment to who they are, is going to come through their friends, their network. So they're very social and great at, you know, kind of connecting. Like, I mean, for example, my partner got his last job through a friend that he knew with biking, right? Like they often came and called him out of his hermitness 2-4 from his network. So it was exactly perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, and he followed his strategy and authority, right? To get there. And they're social, but they can also get some people fatigue. So they're here to influence through friendship and their network. Did you want to add something, Tiff?
No, no, not yet, at least. I mean, I love all of them. I'm like, I want to be that one. I want to be that one. I want to be that one.
They all have these great things. Well, and what's funny, like we said, if we look at our body graph, this is just the sun and earth, which is the sun is 70% of our imprint on the design, on the sun, on the personality and the design side. So that's 70% of our vibes, of our frequency is from our sun and earth. So, from our sun. Then the earth is another, I don't know the percentage of the earth, but it's another big one. The rest are within that 20 to 30% of our expression. So we all have almost all the lines. Now, some people don't have some of the lines, but for example, I have like a weirdly almost even spread between all 6 lines, right? Some people have, like my child, my oldest child, who's 13, has no line 1s. So he doesn't research nothing ever.
Nothing. Well, he doesn't need to. He got you to do that, you know.
That's true. That's what I'm always doing. Show
your chart for a second, because I want to just remind people, so right now we're just talking about the top 2 reds and the top 2 black squares.
That's right.
And that like there's her little onesie and there's her 3Z. But if you like peek down at all of those planets, you can see all of the different lines. So on the right side, it's 1 1 5 5 5 2 4 6 5 3 5 5 6. Like she's got all of the lines represented there is what she's talking about. Not everybody is that way. But there in the body graph, it shows you it. Whoa, that is a pretty even distribution.
Yeah. Here you can see these, like the first,
that's cool.
Just kind of funny. Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of different fun things with that. If we want to look at yours just for fun, you only have one fourth line, which is funny because you do have a lot with your networks, but maybe your
powerful.
opportunities don't always come through that, right? You have the most third lines, which if you just know that is like, oh, I'm supposed to like F stuff up, you know, I'm supposed to make mistakes and poke things and see what works. So that's just to note that we all have most of these. Now, some people have 0 here and there, but most people have all 6, at least one, right?
So to liken this to like astrology, if you're used to looking at your astrology chart, you might notice like, oh, I've got a lot of stuff in an earth signs, or a lot of stuff in water signs, or like no stuff in fire, or no stuff in whatever. I look at that because that's how I'm very condensed that way. So this actually mirrors my astrology chart. I have 4 signs, planets in Scorpio, 4 in Libra, 2 in Sag. That is not an even distribution. I have 0 Earth. Now my 9-star key numbers make up for that and are all Earth. So it's interesting to look at the different layers of information, as it's not like there's one singular roadmap. And just like Leisha was saying, of course I had to do all this stuff to get to the point where I think that this makes sense. Like, of course I had to study all of the different systems, not that they don't work in and of themselves. It's like this door opening to the next thing that I'm interested in understanding. Is this true? You know what I mean? Is this but the idea here that mine aren't evenly distributed, if you're looking at your astrology chart, it may or may not match up. For me, it happens to, right? So I think that's interesting. But before you leave, while we're here,
yes,
so the only fourth line I have is down at the bottom left. It looks like Neptune.
26-4.
Okay, so cool.
Just here.
There it is.
And I would say just to note that, right? I mean, the Neptune, we're not gonna really obviously get into this here, but it's illusion and spirituality, and it's gate 26, line 4. So it will still have that genetic continuity of, with like that aspect of you, it's going to come through your opportunity, the opportunities are going to come through your network, your friends, through your influence,
the spiritual side of things. So it would make a whole lot of sense to have a company like Wise Guys, where we've got a network of people that are interested in spirituality and self-growth and all of the tools and all of the things. And, okay. So I just wanted to point that out. So thank you.
Okay. Should I stop sharing?
Stop your share. I want to see your face.
Stop it.
Okay. There.
Okay. So
I have another sidebar. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, no. So I didn't want to say it, and then I do, because it is like, it's so 2-4. So if you may have seen this short where there's a guy and he's like in his side of, he's in his apartment and he can hear his neighbor play piano every Sunday at 2 o'clock, and he himself is a gifted pianist. And so he like goes, do you know this one? It's
no, but I'm already like, oh, I see where this is.
Yeah, you see where it's going. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because the 2 is represented by that piano player that you brought up. And I was saying like, oh, a natural, like music, like art, like things that, not that you're, anyways, this is just an example of what you could be natural at. Anyway, so the guy hears the neighbor playing the piano and eventually slips him a note, doesn't know, never seen the neighbor before, just slips him a note and is like, hey, let's do a duet, right? And so they end up setting up this time, and now they're like doing this duet between the wall, and they don't see each other ever. And like, come to find out, it's this guy, this elderly man, his wife has passed, and he used to play piano to her at 2 o'clock on Saturday, or what, I know, like, and so they, I know, and they end up like just becoming buddies, and so of course, as the story unfolds, one day the guy passes, right? And so he's just playing to him, so there's nobody on the other side of the duet, right? But he has like activated so much of that 2-4-ness, that like natural connection. There's a wall between us. I don't care, like, I'm gonna connect with you, right? You know what I mean? Like, we're gonna have a duet, like, that's cool. And it draws out that, I don't know obviously what their profiles are, but it's a good example because he drew out the natural talent in that neighbor and like worked with it. like if you were my neighbor doing that, my note would have read very differently than would you like to duet, you know?
Right, because you're a 3-5. So
Yeah, like
right.
what's going on
That's
here,
funny.
you know? So
Yeah.
so anyways, I just
The pessimism, that ain't gonna work.
did we run this
From the
by
line
each
3.
other? No. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
love it.
So just an illustration, I think. So okay, sorry. Thanks for letting me
No,
try.
that's good. I love that example. Um, okay, so we talked about the line 4. So then now we're going to get to the line 5, which is called the heretic. In the house example, that was the kind of the shadow upstairs that we kind of couldn't really see with like through the gauzy screen, not sure if we were seeing what they really were or not. So the heretic is here to influence the collective as well and to universalize something very practical, kind of like a hero through practicality. And they're very aware. However, they can be paranoid, right? Because they're in a projection field. Now, remember we said the 2 was a projection inward because people are like, oh, I see them and they're here. I need to call them out because they're here to do a thing, right? They're a natural. The line 5 is projecting outward. So they kind of have, it's almost like this seductive type quality. And not like in a sexual way, just like this pull you kind of in thing because they're receiving a projection. So it's almost like you can't quite see them, but you think you can, but they seem like the savior that you've been seeking after. Or it can go the negative way, right? Like they just like everything they do is wrong, whatever. And like you're projecting on them though. And my oldest child is a 3-5, and that's what Tiffany is. So as far as that line 5, it really, they do receive a lot of projection. And just being aware of that, if you have a 5th line in your profile, and it can be in the personality or the, or the design side, conscious of it or not, knowing that you live in a projection field that can't be changed. But it's almost like because of the pain of getting that projection and maybe not always being able to meet those expectations, because it's not actually what you are, you're being projected upon, right? You're projecting something outward actually. And so then people are receiving that and thinking you're the answer, right? You're the thing that can bring us all the things. And I think about when my child was born, and Horizon's 13 now, but it's like I see my Facebook post from when Horizon was little, and it's like, oh, this is like just like everything. I'm like, oh my God. And like I'm just going on and on. And like now, of course, 13 years later, I'm like, wow, there's a lot of projection that I was doing onto that little baby who doesn't need to meet those expectations. It's not like they could ever, a line 5 could ever meet the expectations, because it's always going to be way beyond what they actually are. So it's almost like they are kind of behind this like gauzy type, screen or something, to where, they can kind of not really know how to interact with that, as far as like they've known that people have always made assumptions and projections about them, but they kind of, without this knowledge, they might feel that it's something within them that's not meeting that expectation, right? So then there's kind of this like paranoid, like, you're making assumptions, like I'm going to kind of watch from over here, right? So yeah, I think I covered most of that, but the whole thing is to universalize with something practical. And do you want to add anything of your experience with that projection yet?
I'm like trying to think of a really great, I'm like, okay, what could I contribute here? But maybe it's not necessary. I just feel like sometimes I get stuck in an avatar and I'm like, what's happening here? And then also sometimes there's like a reverse avatar where I'll do a reading and then all of a sudden everybody thinks I'm their best friend and you know what I mean? Like it's like this blurred,
the savior. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm like, I all I'm doing is transmitting information. You were born wise. That's why it's so important for me at Wise Guys to like really embrace the language of the anti-guru. You know what I mean? Like it's please don't think, because people are people and they fall, right? And I've had that experience, I guess, earlier in life, where I would really place all of my eggs in one basket and be like, this is the teacher that I need for my horses, or this is the yoga, the philosophy that I want to hang on to forever. And sure enough, every single time the people are just people, right? So it's
Mhm.
not only that it's happening to me, it's also that I've had that experience. And over time, I've learned that people are people. It's so freeing. You can still do the yoga you want to do, and the leader can be weird. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The yoga
Yeah.
works, right? And you don't have to ascribe to their thing, or it doesn't mean that you're going to end up in this crazy like orgy, right? Like it just means that they made some different choices with their yoga, right? And so it doesn't take away from all of the years of horse training, or all of the years of yoga, or all of the years of different teachers that have let me down. You know what I mean? And have they even let me down? They were just being them, and they were imparting information. And so I guess that's really how I see it in my experience, and why it's so important for me and for all of our intuitives, when you're having sessions with us, that we're guiding you back to you, you know? And the only reason that we might appear gifted at it is because we're working so hard and diligently on our own soul's growth. And that's the only reason I could say, like, check out this cool tool. It worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you. Maybe you have a different take on it that I could learn from you too, right? So I don't know. Is that useful?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and I love that because it can also go to the negative side, to where, like, with my child, who's the same profile as Tiffany, a 3-5, which can be a very difficult profile to be in harmony with the rest of humanity, right? Because you basically, if you think about the line 3, the martyr is the personality. So that's poking things, seeing if it doesn't work. Let me see if this communication doesn't work, like, and whatever. And to discover what does work. And then the design, the body, the life, which is the 5, is like this kind of projecting out that, like, they're the savior. They're not doing it. It's just that's how their projection field work. Projecting out that they kind of have this like seductive quality. It's like it draws people in, kind of. Whether, I mean, again, it's not even their fault. They're not. It's no fault. But this
Guide for no
projection,
fault living.
no fault living. That's what human design is. So with my child, it would be that the teacher would send me this email, and it would be like all about, and Horizon's doing this and he just doesn't care, and da 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 da. And it's like, okay, well, let's, and of course I was starting to know human design when a lot of this was going on. And I would just say, I would just like to, bring up the, let's be aware of projecting on him. I'm trying to be aware of that myself. It's not that he doesn't care. It's that this is the way that his brain works, which I know from his chart. So kind of putting it in the mother tongue that we both
Yes,
speak, though, not being like, well, let me tell you about human design. No, it's
that's what
more
I would
just,
do.
well, that's your job. You got that line for universalization of the practical, but I have no universalization in my 1-3. There's none. It's like, figure it out, dig into the details, try it yourself, share when invited. That's my trip, right? So yeah, it's just that projection can go both ways. It can be that they think you're the savior, or they think you're like the not, like, you're taking everything down, right? And just being aware of that is so freeing, because it's not you. It's just they're always going to make assumptions about you because you're in a projection field. So I love the avatar thing. That's a lovely new understanding that you've brought to the 5th line for me. Okay, so then the last line is the 6th line, and that's called the role model. That was the person just sitting back on the top of the house on the roof, kind of looking toward the future, looking out toward the collective. So there's kind of this optimism type quality to someone with a 6 in their line, I mean, in their profile. And it's like this objectivity, like they've seen all the different roles that everyone played in the building of the thing, and kind of the evolution of the building of the house. And now they have this objective view because they're up here, so they can kind of see everything that just happened. And they're also sort of like, I guess aloof, or kind of not really influenced anymore at that point. And it's a 3-part life process with the 6th line. So basically, like the first 30 years, now in human design, from 0 to 30 is considered you're a child. Like, it's not adulthood. It's the first 30 years. I mean, we're in an 84-year life cycle now. So the first 30 years is considered childhood with human design. For a 6 line, the first 30 is a third line process. So they live as a third line. So they're poking things, they're seeing what doesn't work, they're effing stuff up, they're making mistakes, bonds, and broken, adaptable, right? Discovering what doesn't work and does. So basically the danger, I guess, of that 6 line process is because the first 30 years was a third line process. Now you're changing, you're not from 30 to 50, you're not going to be in a third line operation anymore. So often we can take the pessimism from all the things that didn't work, we can take that into the 30 to 50, and we can, think nothing's going to work. We can kind of not really move forward in our life process. Now, if we're aligned, then 30 to 50 will be a different process. If we're operating correctly and within our mechanics, then from 30 to 50 is called on the roof, right? So it's like watching and seeing and kind of contemplating the entire scope of things and seeing what happened in the first 30 years and seeing who has integrity and what was worthwhile in that house building process, right? What was, what works? What can I take forward? And what did I learn from that, right? So if in alignment at age 50, which is when the true flowering begins, so it ain't the end of our lives, which I'm approaching 50-ish. So I'm really enjoying that concept. But yeah, it's like the flowering happens at 50, especially in a 6 line. Now, this is true for everyone, and there's different parts, but the 6 line has these 3 phases of life, this tripartite life force process, basically. So 50 is the flowering. They come down off the roof, is what it's kind of termed in HD. And they're like this living example of all the things that were discovered from the 1-3 and what was kind of the projections in and out, the adaptation, the way the 5th line universalized everything. The 6th line then kind of is the taking it forward to the collective, to the next evolution, so that humanity continues to evolve forward and learns from what we've discovered. So it's like this, again, this living example kind of role model type of role, if they've been aligned with their design. That's what happens at 50. 50 is where it's at. Okay. So I love hearing that. Did you want to add anything to any of those, Tiff, for the lines?
No, I'm just like scanning my mind, like, who do I know that has a 6? But I just love that like freedom of, I don't have to really, when I see the picture on, really what it makes me think of is there's a cabin on top of the sailboat where the party's still happening down there. There's still fish in the water going deep, and there's some people that are like literally rocking the boat, but when you're on top of it, it's like there's this freedom from it, but there's this like enjoyment of it, and you're not
looking
really
at the stars.
Yeah, you're not necessarily influenced by what's happening currently, but you're kind of in that reflective state where you're like, oh, what a great day this was. You know what I mean? Or what an interesting.
I love that, the reflective. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all that came to me during that.
Okay, that's awesome. I love
during the
because with your water thing and so I feel like we did touch pretty deeply on each of our profiles, the 1-3 and each of the lines. And really just remembering that we each have various activations in almost all the lines. So we're going to relate to different parts of these, but through the awareness of these profile mechanics, we can really realize that we're not just here randomly. Like, we came in at a very specific angle of geometry and a very specific place in the totality. Like, we have a unique way of doing things and purpose and knowledge and expression that we are supposed to bring to the collective. Like, we have a unique role. So, we can, of course, either live it fully in alignment in its fullest potential, or we can live against it where we have the resistance and, we're more homogenized, as human design says, instead of differentiated in our unique strategy, authority, and profile, along with all the other mechanics that we can look at. If we are aligned, then we're going to be differentiated. We're going to own that I am different, and I do like to dig in, line 1, and I do like to try things for myself, line 3, and I'm loving it about myself, instead of trying to be like, oh, why did I make all these mistakes? which it's not
or
like we're,
why am I not like the way that my society or my family or my tribe brought me up to be? It's like, I'm just not that. And that's great.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Right.
I
Like, because, go
have a
ahead.
question for you. So we were
Sure.
talking about this quote this morning from Ra, right? Ra Uru Hu is the guy that basically transmitted human design to all of us. And there was a quote that says, I've got it pulled up here. It says that profile is something that's so deeply important for us to grasp because it's the place of our purpose. And so I didn't want, that to get lost. Like, we're talking about it like it's this unique little, piece that you're going to resonate with. It's going to make sense for you. But the guy that transmitted this says that it's deeply important for you to understand your purpose. And so it doesn't mean that your purpose is to be a 1-3 or 3-5 or 2-4 or 2, it doesn't mean that you have to be that thing. It means like that's your lens for understanding your greater the greater tide beneath you, right? I mean, would you speak to that? Like, how do you interpret that?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. It's like the way that we are designed to operate to fulfill our purpose. Now, you can't get to your purpose with your mind or thinking, well, my purpose is to share, like to share all this astrology with the human beings or whatever. You can't mind it, right? You can't use your mind to get there. You use your type, strategy, and authority in alignment with your body, your mind, your vehicle, your mechanics, your energy, the way it works. And that means, you're also operating within your profile. And then you get to your purpose. You start living your purpose. You don't go toward it like a goal or need to figure it out. You will be it if you differentiate according to your mechanics, right? So I don't know if that covers that, but the profile is how we operate in alignment to get to our purpose.
Right.
So it reveals it over time.
It makes 100% to me makes sense. And I hope that it makes sense to you guys too, because it can sound like kooky talk. You know what I mean? It can sound like, what are you? And it's again, Ra is the founder. He like the whole idea is don't believe this, go try your own experiment, right? And so I don't want you to believe any of this. If you want to play with it, I invite you to play with it. It starts by understanding your body graph. And so we have this whole tour of the body graph that we've done. Again, it's for members only. It's in live now. You can go check it out in your members area. If you're not a member, you can join. It's just $22 a month. So little sidebar marketing in there, because I think the tour of the body graph, it's like there's so much there, and you really distilled it down in a way that I'm like, because it would be like a tour of your birth chart. Like, there's a lot going on there. There's symbols, there's shapes, there's colors. Like, what do they mean? There's numbers. And so that tour of the body graph, I think, is such a huge benefit for our members. So thank you for doing that. If this is the first time you're hearing about human design through Wise Skies, just know that Wise Skies is a metaphysical counseling company. We got a lot of things to choose from. If this one speaks to you, Leisha's doing her mini sessions for $44 in November only. This is the only time she'll ever have it at that price. You could do the full session now, right? Like, you could book the longer session now. If you're like, I just want to go all in, I want to see the whole thing. So that's available for you. But if you're just HD curious, you just want a little taste, right? You just want a little sip, right? Like, you could just dip your toe in that water, feel it, right? You could just do that, like, for that $44, because how magical is that number? That is
line 4, friends, influence, network. I mean, if we're gonna go, HD curious.
HD curious, and
number.
The 44 was there purposefully, right? And so I think that there's a frequency to it, and it's a very generous offer that I am so excited about. So thank you again for doing that. What else can I tell you? We've got other articles up. There's a What is HD article, and I'll link to that too. There's a whole podcast on aura types. Y'all, when I say like W's and like WH's, I say it wrong. And like we have cracked up, my kiddo and I've cracked up about this. Like I say like There's a whole episode,
A whole. It's like a whole.
Yeah, whole episode. Like, you want to eat some wheat?
It's like a French little.
Not even,
like
not
the
even
wheat.
Yes. Like, what are you talking about right now? Like, you know,
Oh my God,
when
so
do you want to
funny.
meet up? I don't know why. Like, huh? You know, I don't know. But
where'd it come from? We don't know.
We have a whole other article. But then, like, what's the alternative? Like, what? We have a whole other article.
Just an H sound, though, or I guess a W sound. Whole wheat. I don't know.
Wheat.
Whole wheat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, all the gluten and weight like references. Anyways,
I know why. We don't eat gluten. Okay.
Right, that was before HD. No.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So
Right.
one more little ink I want to get in here is you did give us a little touch of the genetic side of things. And I know somebody heard amino acid and was like, oh, I watch all of the Dave Asprey stuff and like I need to understand what she's saying right now. So can you give us how, I mean, I don't need like the sciencey whole thing, but if you were just looking at somebody's chart and they needed some info on amino acids, like where does that come in?
It's definitely like in the layered information. And but it's basically like each hexagram, which each gate and each line within that gate corresponds to a different amino acid. And it's like this whole chart, like I'm definitely still learning about like digging in and investigating that myself. But yeah, just to know that it goes to the like every amino acid, the DNA, information, and the way that the amino acids are formulating the DNA. It's all like have many charts that are like insanely large. And I haven't fully grasped it. So I'm still investigating that,
and it
to
may
make
not
the foundation strong.
Well, right. Like it may not need to be a thing that you have to worry about, but I know that somebody heard that and was like, I wonder what protein smoothie would be best for my profile. And like, there is one probably, you might find it.
I mean, there definitely is like a lot to look at. It's within gates and channels mainly is where a lot of the nutrition, but it's like, you can look at like, am I a mental vegetarian or does my body actually need to be a vegetarian? Do I need meat? Do I need potatoes? Do I need weight in my intestines? Like there's, I mean, literally just every detail that we could go into with that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. I'm like, ding, 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 ding. The other thing is, if you follow your strategy and authority, you're going to be naturally attracted to the foods that are best for your cognition. Anyway, you don't really have to mind brain it up a little. You know what I mean? Like you can just notice in your experiment, do I want soup today that goes with my hot thirst? Do I not want ice in my tea? How do I feel? I'm just staying more and more curious about it, right? I think the gift of curiosity. Yeah, the gift of curiosity in this whole thing is what makes it fun, Yeah. Like I'm just staying curious. I'm not like geeking out and taking an exact diary of every single experience I have. But you might, you know what I mean? Like you could play with however you want to play with your own experiment. It's just I noticed that's how it came to me today. So, okay, well, let's wrap this session. You got some profiles to play with. There's 12 of them out there. There's only 6 lines to understand anyway. So it's just going to be a combination of 2 of the 1 through 6, right? You understand where they came from, right? So to wrap it up, like we've got the profile. The first one is the number on the right. It's that one that you're going to resonate with. That's going to make sense to you, how you are, how you operate. And you've got that second number that's going to be in the left, that red column, that line that is represented between your sun and your earth. Line that's going to be a little bit more subconscious, a little bit hidden. It might not make a lot of sense to you. In my world, that makes perfect sense, right? Like I was describing the 5, like, I had to really experience it myself before I understood that it was just part of my way, and so I think that's it. Like that's a great lesson in profiles. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, have a great evening, night, morning, wherever you're listening. We really appreciate it. We know there's a lot of podcasts you could be hanging out with. It means a lot that you're hanging out with us. If you need any more resources, we're at wiseskiescollective.com. And namaste. Namaste.